this panel is quite well placed after the first half where we saw leaders speaking about X
12
to 10X, and we spoke about 100X growth, right? And through that, we saw what are the factors that would influence. We spoke about innovation, we spoke about investments, we spoke about incentives. People spoke about the talent, the need for skilling, and the collaboration partnerships that also came into picture. And now, in this particular session, we'll ask the same question. Is India ready to be a superpower? But the focus would be on semiconductor. And the question would be, is India ready to be a semiconductor superpower? So that will be the focus, and I'm privileged to have such a great panel here. The reason I'm telling is, cumulatively, I think we should hear, excluding me, 120 plus years of experience from across the ecosystem, from manufacturing as a fabrication. People have led the design, silicon design, the innovations across IP creations, EDAs, the policymakers. So we have the complete set here. So I hope we should be able to answer and take away some of the aspects, the factors for this, the accelerated growth, what we are aiming towards. Right. Over next 40 minutes, we'll run this session, and at the end, we'll open up for the audience questions. To start with, one thing about this audience panelist is we have a diverse set across the industry verticals, across the functions. So let me just start with Navin from your side. Would like to understand the current landscape and the factors, the influence in this particular segment. And I'll start with you. Help me understand the first segment, one of the segments of it, the fabless or a silicon design of part of the semiconductor ecosystem, and how India is positioned, or what are the strengths?
Sure. Good afternoon. Few years back, if I sit here and say I'm from Marvel Semiconductor, people would say, what's Marvel and what's semiconductor? Thankfully, things have changed. No one is asking that. In fact, people are here to listen us. If you look at from a semiconductor perspective, we are hearing a lot of noise about manufacturing right now, and for the right reason. But tell the fact, the design ecosystem exists for 40 years in India, right? It started in '85 and has now every big multinationals or the semiconductor companies doing design has presence in India. And if you look at the value chain or the way the life cycle of design progresses, we are talking about parts or chips which has billions of transistors in it. Now, to be able to, I would say, visualize those transistors, there's a lot of technology development that's been happening. You need the EDA CAD solutions to be able to simulate, optimize, and be able to say it will work reliably in the conditions that we use them. And then finally comes the building blocks that we call as IP, because you can't do 100 billion transistors by hand. So you build a lot of reusable IPs and stack them together to be able to put up a chip or a product, which then we use in multiple cases. Once we have this building blocks is when what we call as a design, where we integrate all these IPs, the blocks, we use the EDA CAD tools to be able to simulate, optimize, and then sign off, and then do it across the technology node that I'm talking about is 7 nanometer, 5 nanometer, 3 nanometer, and now talking about 2 nanometer. So the ecosystem has exists. The EDA IP companies, the design fabless companies have been doing it for decades. Most of the products, I can actually proudly say that 60 to 70% of the products that we use, which has chips in it, is touched by a design engineer sitting in India, to the fact that today we say the 30% of designers are with the Indian origin, and most of them being in India, but also in the global parts of the world.
Great. So we are strong. Perfect. So let me come to you, Malini. So the second segment, which is the fabrication or the manufacturing, want to understand what are the aspects of manufacturing supply chain, including the OSAT, what we speak about, how we are positioned on that segment.
Okay. So Navin just talked about a design, right? So you have a design. That design will have, I don't know, millions of transistors. Those transistors have to get imprinted onto a wafer. And that is the first part of manufacturing of the semiconductors. So that's the fabrication bit. Now, after that happens, we have the other side, which is the packaging, which is like a layer they put on top and what you see when you see a chip for mechanical, thermal reasons, right? And India's, it's all over the news. It's all over the news in different ways. I mean, you must be hearing about the whole Taiwan situation because Taiwan is largely a bit of a bottleneck with respect to semiconductor manufacturing. And in India, what we've done recently, we on both sides, on the fabrication side as well as the packaging side, we have a couple of, we have actually 4 announcements at this point. One fabrication in Assam by the Tatas, and 3 different OSATs as well, very much supported by the government and the PLI schemes. One of them, of course, is Renesas with CG Power. We have a joint venture to open a OSAT in Sanand, Gujarat as well. Now, just going back to your question, is India ready to be a semiconductor superpower? Well, fabrication and I think we're on the right track for fabrication and on the fabrication and packaging side. Having said that, I mean, you can look at that in different ways, right? Are we ready to be a semiconductor superpower from a technology node standpoint? Likely not, because we're not, I don't think the aim is to try and catch up with Taiwan and try and put, you know, more and more transistors. I think if we're looking at it from a business standpoint, what we need to do, for instance, consumer or IoT, we can do it with much larger nodes, which if that's our focus, I think we're well on our way.
Perfect, perfect. So we have started and we are focusing on our segments to fill the gaps. Perfect. So I'll move to Hitesh. So we spoke about the design, the fabrication, right? And coming to the demand part, that's the consumer of this semiconductor components. Help us understand what is that system integration, the productization segment or aspects of semiconductor value chain.
Yeah, thank you, Vijay, and very good afternoon to all of you. I think we had a very perfect world a few years back. So the designs were done in India or US and then fabricated in Taiwan, as Malini mentioned, or some in China or somewhere in US. Then the chips were packaged in Asia or US, tested in US, then you can say going into systems or building the boards in China, shipped to all of the world. So this was the value chain. So a chip used to take 3 rounds around the world before it comes to a consumer, right? So that was a perfect world order that we have a few years back. But then the government started to realize, and especially because of the geopolitical things, that we are missing the key important pieces. What happens if tomorrow, Taiwan goes in a different way, or China goes in a different way? So we have over dependencies. So that's when it started to kick in that every geography at least have to have some level of understanding, reliance or self-reliance on this topic. So that's where every geography, be it US, be it Europe, be it India, so everybody started to put some focus in that. That's very recent, like 2-3 years. So from the market standpoint, we see we are great enabler. So we are the thought leaders in any market. You talk about automotive. So behind mobile revolution, the PC revolution, we are talking about edge computing now. So semiconductors are the great enablers, or I would say, so we are the thought leaders behind any technological advancements. So the demand is growing. We see 2030 is around $1 trillion of revenue from the overall semiconductor. Today we are at 600, 650 in that range. India consumption is in the range of 40 to 50 billion dollars. We target to hit around 120 by 2030. So overall growth rate, if you see for the overall market, is going to be around 12%, while India is going to grow at 24%, the demand side. So these are the projections, and so this is what we see is going to be real in next 3 to 4 years. But what we need is at least more and more system thinking. So we are very good in designing chips. We are very good in manufacturing, like OEMs. We see Tata's, Mahindra's, big OEMs are in India. But the middle piece is somewhere missing. The system designers, system definers who will make electronic system. Even if you say we are doing a lot of manufacturing of mobile phone, 25% Apple phones are manufactured in India. So that's the change that we have made. But are all the designs done in India? Do we have the PCB manufacturing of those systems done in India? So that's the opportunity that we need to click to gain, I would say, good level of, you can say, market share in this segment.
Perfect. Note opportunity number one for the audience. So coming back to the enabling part, Parnika, so you've been taking think of it, and would like to understand the evolution of the policy around semiconductor in India, in Karnataka, and also, I think during our talk, you highlighted the ongoing policy revision which is happening in the state as well as in the center. Want to understand how it's aligned and how it would enable the accelerated thought process what you're trying to achieve.
So before I answer your question, just a quick thank you to all the organizers for having us here. Very excited to be hearing from the fellow panelists. Very, very exciting to be here. To get to the topic of how the government and the larger system is preparing for the sudden upsurge, let's say, of India being in the news for everything to do with semiconductors, despite having been in semiconductors for a very, very long time. So one is, of course, from a central government point of view, if we see that it is at a very, very critical time for the entire ecosystem, since both three of the major policies of the government at the central government level are undergoing change. The new version will be announced shortly, is what has been told. Similarly, even at government of Karnataka's level, while the existing policy is actually valid till 2025 September, because of the pace at which the industry and the ecosystem has grown, and given a lot of changes on the geopolitical front, the state is also coming out with a new version of the electronics policy with a dedicated focus on the semiconductor vertical, because the government is beginning to understand that even within semiconductors, there are so many different specifications for each of the subsectors.
Okay.
So in terms of what kind of preferences they have for infrastructure, refurbished, all of that finer points need to be reflected in the policy. And that is the activity that is ongoing, and we should be making an announcement for the policies for the state also shortly. But I think more than policy and incentives, what is the larger change that we see happening is that the whole story is getting tied together in a way.
Okay.
Right from components to assembly to the supply and demand, all of those various points within the ecosystem are kind of getting aligned, and the government is able to take that whole story in one perspective. And be it pitching for Mysuru as a PCB cluster for the state, with a lot of activity happening around there, strategically locating EMC clusters across the state so that that can actually help build the ecosystem in a bigger way, right down till the policy, of course.
Okay.
So this whole dialogue you see, be it the industry or the government is talking the same language. Okay. And that is, I think, critical for not just the government's policies, but also for the larger industry.
Perfect. Opportunity number two for the people here, the tier 2 cities expansion, yes. So, so double-clicking on the aspects what we started with. So the forces are the critical factors that would accelerate this particular journey, right? So, and I'll come back to you, Navin. So you spoke about the importance of technological innovation and the IP creation in the overall value chain, what you highlighted. Can you just, within a few examples, highlight the importance of that as we grow or accelerate it to be a superpower?
Sure. So I think a lot of story has been around development and now getting into the manufacturing side of it. One key piece which is still, I would say, nascent stage and needs to be focused is the R angle, research angle of the R&D. Okay. What has traditionally been seen as a science which is related to electrical and electronics and computer architecture we need to realize that this is more than that. We need to worry about not just the physics and electrical and chemical part of it, but also about how will the materials behave, right? How will the different gases and other things will come into picture when we get into the manufacturing? What will be the reliability when we use these devices for 5, 10, 15 years? And that needs a focus on the research side of things, right? And that's one angle which is also coming up, which is seeded by the government. A lot of companies were doing it, and is coming up to be a R&D ecosystem where if we divide the overall semiconductor life cycle into 12 parts, and each one has a research area, a couple of institutes along with industry partner associated with it, and be able to drive the key science or key research to be able to ready with what we call as maybe the niche products or custom products or specialized products that maybe India will need and probably some of the other parts of the geography as well. And this is driven by those IPs creation, right? Right? What are those building blocks that will be needed in these use cases? There is a lot of scope for open source because we have realized that it's not just hardware. The software comes and play a very important role to be able to productize these products in our hands. And so open source software so that we can reuse a lot of those in a platform environment and make it fast accessible to others. And in third place, it will also come in is that many of these are very complex things and we follow a very big concept called standards. So through IEEE and many others, we follow standards and create standards for some things which we can reuse. Or be able to interoperate between what I created and it will go and sit in a system which Hitesh company create and then probably be manufactured or tested by what they do. And those standards come into picture so that everybody knows that these are my inputs, these are my outputs, these are the standard ways to program it and access the memory or do all of that. So I think those are the building blocks for those technological innovation that will happen from IP to open source and all the way to the standards.
Perfect, perfect. And Hitesh, coming to you, so I'm changing a question from whatever we discussed, but based on the discussion what we had backstage. So want to understand, you spoke about the changing customer demand, that's a consumer of your components, right? And you spoke about the need for end-to-end supplier, right? So can you just throw some light about, around it and a few examples?
No, thank you, Vijay. I think this is, so as I said, so as we are moving into the semiconductor journey, so our customers are also changing, right? Their expectations are changing. We see technological breakthroughs. We talk about autonomous driven cars. We are all kind of looking at those needs, but customers are also becoming, you can say, very specific. Okay, when we come to you, so we would like to see a thought leadership from your side, right? So they come and they ask us. So basically, the whole value chain is I provide, like I'm a component provider, right? NXP, so we provide chips, and that's basically a component. So we provide to tier 2s, tier 2 goes to tier 1 goes to OEMs. Now the OEMs and comes ask us, okay, what's cooking in your kitchen? Because they see the whole innovation in their cars or maybe into industry or whatever the industry segment is all coming from semiconductors. So they are asking us, okay, please tell us what are your roadmaps? What are you guys innovating on? And how my vehicles will look like. So at least they are looking a lot of thought leadership from us, at the same time demanding these roadmaps, at the same time demanding our thought leadership in the system. So they are not at this moment only interested, okay, I provide this component, but how the whole system looks like. If I look at a car, right, okay, in the car, if it's an autonomous car, it will have sensing. So are you providing me the sensors? Are you providing me the edge computing? Are you providing me the connectivity? Are you providing me the central compute? Are you providing me the EV solutions? Are you providing the basic microcontrollers? So how they can look at the complete solutions for a specific end market. So we are also inside our companies, we are innovating, we are structuring, how do we service these market needs? Okay. Right, which are based on certain domains, be it automotive, be it industrial, be it IoT, be it 5G, telecom, or compute. So I think this is a systematic change because we are forced, we are anyway thought leaders, but we are even forced more to be thought leaders in our domains.
Perfect, perfect. Malini, coming back to you, I think another one of the important, very important factor is the talent, right? How do you see the importance or the way talent development should be aligned with the need of the industry?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen so many different articles. One, they say 300,000 deficit in the US for semiconductor, and then I've seen another article says we need 125,000 more people in the semiconductor space in India. And I'm kind of living it every day. I speak to we're a Japanese company, and I speak to a lot of Japanese counterparts, and they say, we have aging population, we really need some of the talent from India to come trickle in. So no doubt we need the talent. Okay, so if any of you want to join, let us know, and semiconductor industry will be happy to take you, I bet you. But getting back to the talent, there are different kinds of talent, obviously. There's the design manufacturing talent, which there's a lot of learning to be had from the Southeast Asian countries, which now there are programs at play to be able to do that. Then there's the design side of things. I mean, Navin spoke a lot about, design and R&D and IP creation, where I think that's the kind of talent where if you took, I don't know, 10 years ago, India was very much treated like an augmentation. And when I say augmentation, we'll take care of the architecture from, North America. We'll take care of the core design. If you can just verify the design and make sure it looks good in India, that was it, and that has shifted. That shift requires our talent to also shift, the way we train our talent. And lots of programs put in place, AICTE, they have new curriculums put in place to bring that talent to a different kind of quality. And what will happen when that happens and we have full products in India, it goes to what Hitesh said, which that product mindset will come in. And with that product mindset comes, the creativity, the engineers we hire will have a lot more ownership, and finally, it will snowball into having more startups and more product companies out of India. So talent, super important. And the good thing is we have the population, and so hopefully we get all the programs in place.
Perfect. One more question and I'll open up for the audience. Parnika, coming back to you. So what are the initiatives from the government implemented or being implemented specific to the skill set development?
Right. So there is a huge responsibility on India in that sense, because young population, lot of talent gap worldwide and lot of talent gap within the country. So while one end of the focus is on how we can get more and better technology-driven companies, and while all states are in turn competing for the same, healthily, but still competing. But what we end up not realizing sometimes is that even 3 or 5 years down the line, if all the companies that have now sort of initiated those conversations actually start becoming operational, the gap is just going to increase so much more. So which means there is a need for a massive skilling initiative to be undertaken. And I think a lot of good work has happened through METI's collaborations for semi-university or semi-verse programs that they have ongoing. At the government of Karnataka level, there is a conversation ongoing, and it will probably be announced formally soon, is to set up a training fab in Mysuru. So that can actually act as a launch pad for training individuals in the entire value chain of wherever there is a skill gap prominently in the semiconductor ecosystem. And we're also, of course, there were smaller programs such as the VLSI training program, the VLSI skilling program, ITIs here and there. So different isolated activities of skilling have happened, but definitely not on par with what is the demand in the ecosystem. And this training fab is going to be set up in collaboration with key industry associations, as well as some of the important industries themselves. And that we're hoping will address a significant amount of the gap that's being created. That's hopefully going to address the problem in the larger side. Thank you.
Perfect. So as we start the audience round. Request you to keep the questions crisp and short, maybe 30 seconds, not more than that, so that we can take maybe a couple of questions. Anybody? One. Oh, yes. Can we get a mic? Yes.
All right. I'd like to know if AI poses any challenge in anticipating supply. Is that when we
Hello. Hi, my name is Sparsh, and first of all, a very insightful discussion. Thank you, all of you, for enlightening us on this. And my question is about the fabrication part, which ma'am was talking just a few seconds back. And from what I have read and from what I've picked up during the conversation as well, it's a fabrication facility takes a lot of funding and money to go into, right? Even a small fab facility, and that is where, and that emerges as a critical bottleneck for India to emerge as a superpower. And my question is basically, what are your perspectives on how are we as an ecosystem planning to get that funding, whether it is from a central government or a state government perspective, or from outside foreign investors as well? How are we tackling that problem?
Well, the government has introduced something called the PLI scheme, which it's honestly among the best schemes in the world. Like most governments right now have schemes going on, but the one that we have from the Indian government basically funds 50% of the fabrication initially, and then the state governments, many state governments have policies to fund further. So that's how we've managed at least the first few fabs that have, the first fab and the first ATMP packaging facilities have leveraged that for commercial purposes. They have leveraged that. So that's how right now India is overcoming that bottleneck.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Vijay.
All right. Great session. It's a complex topic. You broke it through really well. I just wanted to know what role AI will play in the skill gap that you are talking about.
Anyone?
Yeah, long back when we started doing the design, there was introduction of these softwares called EDA and CAD. And then many people told me that, Navin, you might not have a job because EDA CAD will do the push button and things will happen. So they said that you might write the specs in a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint and then you'll get a silicon out of it, right? I'm still here working and I have thousands and thousands of engineers. AI is accelerating that development, but it's also asking us to do much more innovation at a faster pace. The AI itself demands much more electronics. And to do that, we need more chips, we need more functionalities in it, more smart intelligence in it, and that's just expanding the opportunities or the jobs that's ahead for us.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. So the time's up. So I had a couple of more questions, but I think if you have any further questions, please join us in the speakers lounge so they'll be able to answer. And thanks a lot once again for your time. I hope this has answered a few of the questions what we started with. And we have noted few opportunities which I quoted and few others as well. And I believe there's a lot of collaboration between the government, the industry, as well as some of the startups and other players from the ecosystem here. Thanks a lot once again.